Well, joining us in studio is Ronald Wiso, Media Coordinator at Casual Workers Advice, and Pitso Sekhoto, Chairman for AFASA Membership and Farmer Mobilization Committee. Good evening to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Just having watched that video, I mean, I can't imagine how anyone could actually allege that it was doctored. Let me just talk to you. I mean, you actually represent some of the workers who work on farms, even on a casual basis. Talk to us about some of the issues that they claim to have with dealing with their employers.
Well, it's a terrible video. The violence in that video is unspeakable. There's what we see. You see the worker is not really fighting back. He's trying to protect himself as much as possible, but he's not fighting back. But what is also the sign of the depth of the problem is the other workers standing there, because few things really affect a person as to see your fellow being attacked and you feel so powerless. There's nothing you can do about it. And I've been working with farm workers for a number of years, trying to raise awareness of their issues, supporting their organizing. This year we've had a number of workshops, and this kind of thing is routine, unfortunately. We hear in every workshop, awareness raising workshop, we hear stories like this, and then also stories of people trying to get justice, trying to go to the authorities, trying to get some kind of support, and finding that, look, farm workers are mainly on their own. It's terrible.
Now, just coming to you, Pitso, you actually represent some farm owners. Do you think that race plays an important role as to whether it's a black farm owner or a white farm owner that's dealing with these farm workers?
You know, I don't think the issue of race really plays a role in relationship with your employees. It's just something that comes from you, that you need to respect these poor people. They must also respect you, irrespective of being a black farmer or a white farmer. Those are the things that really destroys our industry, because there's hatred from, let me put it straight, from white farmers who are actually treating our black workers like dogs, like people that are not in existence. You know, it's like animals. I think I can quote 20 items that we have been seen in these TVs where you realize that why it has to be like this, why a person, a human being, has to treat another human being like this in the 21st century, where we are battling with issues that are so serious about land transformation of this country. So it's very sad. It's really sad, because we just can't allow this. From AFASA, we are very much against this type of treatment from certain communities.
And do you think perhaps there should be some sort of contractual agreement between the farm workers and the farm owners to try and set a basis for the relationship between employer and employee?
You don't have to put a contract for you to manage your employees anywhere in the world. You just have to be human. You just have to be open, straightforward. If something has gone wrong, you've got rules and regulations that actually manages those situations. But you just can't go through and do what I've just seen. And being, whether you are a supervisor or you are a manager or you are an owner, you can't treat
people in that manner.
In this manner. And you can see he's not fighting back. The guy's on top of him.
He's actually being strangled with that manager's T-shirt. The manager took off his shirt and actually was trying to strangle that worker with his own shirt. But clearly the worker's helpless in defending himself. I think we're going to be joined now on the phone line by Ronnie McKenzie, the president of the Farmers United South Africa. Good evening to you, Ronnie. Thank you very much for joining us. We were just watching a video before you joined us of a farm worker who was being pinned down by a manager from the farm. The manager took off his shirt and began to even try and suffocate the farm farm worker. He tried to go to the police, open a case. The farm manager opened a case against him as well, but the state said that they couldn't prosecute. One of the reasons was because of lack of evidence against this farm manager, even though there was a video, just because the farm manager claimed the video was doctored. What do you have to say regarding the spate rather of violence against farm workers and some farm owners? Ronnie, good evening. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. You know, it becomes so unfortunate that we keep going through this over and over, and we don't seem... Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Ronnie.
Can you hear me now? Can I go ahead? Can you hear me? Hello?
Please go ahead, Ronnie.
Can I go ahead?
It appears we have a bit of a sound delay, about 15 seconds of a sound delay there. But just talking about the fact that that farm worker wasn't fighting back. He tried to go to the police to open a case. The manager opened a case as well against him, claimed that footage was doctored. The state saying that they don't have enough evidence to use to prosecute. What more evidence do you need than visual evidence, as well as the witnesses who were around? Do you think that perhaps some of the farm workers are too scared to testify because they fear for their own lives or their own families' lives?
Oh yes, look, this case obviously is a criminal case. It shouldn't be handled in the kind of labor relations framework. But if that's the framework or the field that we work in as the Casual Workers Advice Office, and what we find is that that framework itself is also completely a failure when it comes to protecting the rights of farm workers. What is interesting about the clip you played is the reaction of the farm owner. The person in the video is the manager, but the reaction of the farm owner is along the lines that he doesn't see anything wrong with what is going on and what is being done to this worker. So in that situation, there's no possibility of a compromise, of a kind of collegial conversation. There's a group now in the Western Cape, an NGO, Women on Farms, who are doing this kind of work, and they are saying these kind of farmers are the ones who should be targeted first for expropriation without compensation, because there's no possible coexistence that can happen between someone who thinks that's okay and the victim of that kind of behavior. So what I was trying to say about, if you look at this, about the labor relations and the workers' rights framework, if you look at what happened in the last few years, the progress that farm workers made, farm workers are fighting, they are resisting. And when they have done so and done so successfully, they've done it outside of that framework. They've done it through unprotected strikes, through blocking of roads, through land occupations, and so on. And for me, this is entirely understandable, given what we are seeing, that when they do try and use the institutions that's supposed to look after their rights, there's this kind of response. No, we can't prosecute. Or in the case of workers' rights, there's almost every research that comes out shows that there's less than 50% compliance among farmers. So it's no wonder that in the Sundays River Valley a few weeks back, when workers went on strike, they just blocked the whole town. They brought the whole town to a standstill. The same thing in the Western Cape, starting in the Dorings in 2012, where workers just went on an unprotected strike, blocked the major highways, and so on, and then won something. And I think this is going to happen more and more. And
Ronald, I believe that we do have Ronnie back on the line. Ronnie, good evening to you. I think that the delay in sound is a bit shorter now. Just give us your voice on these farm violence issues that have been happening.
Technology has got a way of disappointing. Like I was saying earlier on, it becomes unfortunate that we still find ourselves in this position 24 years down the line. I can just give a straight talk to farm workers out there. We're all going through a similar type of thing. We are suffering as black farmers, farm workers and all that. To farm workers out there, the best next thing to do is just, murala. Do what you got to do and fight back. This thing of being obedient to white people can no longer be. It's enough. It's time that we start taking Africa to ourselves. This is our continent. This is our country. We can't keep on seeing these type of things happening all the time. We are accused of saying, we've got this AfriForum group that is going around the world talking nonsense about South Africa. Yet you'll never find them condemning this type of behavior that we find with farmers, what they do to our people out there. So the best next thing is, I'll say to farm workers out there, your boss starts to lift up a hand for you, murim. Don't still be merciful, do what you got to do. That's what I can say to farm workers out there. We work, these are our people, we know how they suffer. We're looking on the Department of Labor to visit the farms. Where are they in this? They are nowhere to be found. Where's the Sanko? Nowhere to be found. What do we then do? We got to defend ourselves. Enough is enough. We're 23 years down the line. I'm not perpetuating violence, but I'm saying do not allow yourself to be bullied. Mm-hmm. Do your work. That's what I can say to farm workers out there. It's enough. As South Africa, we are hurtful.
All right, let's just come back to studio. I can hear the emotion and the passion with which Ronnie speaks there, choosing some words that are rather unsavory. But, Piso, do you think that is the right thing then for the farm workers to take the law into their own hands? Is that the best way to stop themselves from being bullied by their bosses?
Look, I think somewhere along the line, Ronnie might be right, because if the police, the structures that needs to protect that particular person, is not giving him what he's expecting, what else can he do? What else can those poor people, you can see, they have been standing there watching their colleague being humiliated by that chap. And it's so sad. I can't imagine. I thought I would be having my colleagues from the white sector sitting here and talking to the world, all of us, and saying, we condemn this, like Ronnie is saying about AfriForum, about whoever. I'm saying to my colleagues from Tau, from Agri-SA, what are you saying? What are you saying? Come up and let's hear you. What are you saying when you see things happening like this? Because we talk about this thing every day. He's right, Ronnie's right. Yes. We speak with these people every day about this. But it's terrible to see still happening.
We actually did try to get them to join the conversation, Piso, but unfortunately our efforts were not very successful. We are going to be joined now by the Commissioner at the SA Human Rights Council, Chris Nissen. Chris, good evening to you and thank you for joining the conversation. Just talk to us about what can be done. Earlier on, there were suggestions for the farm workers to actually take the law into their own hands and not allow themselves to be bullied, and have themselves be violated in such a manner.
Yeah, let me just correct. I'm from the South African Human Rights Commission, which is Chapter 9 institution, and obviously defend people's rights throughout South Africa. The point I want to make is that, of course, you've got a number of farm workers that that have felt the brutality of farmers across the country, like the video you've posted. My concern is that it's not all the farmers that are there, but the farmers have, historically, between farm workers and farmers, there has been a brutality in that relationship. And we, as the South African Human Rights Commission, have consistently taken up these issues. You remember the coffin case, and we have been consistently taking it up, and we are saying that we need to speak to the farming institutions and organizations to say that it's not right that farmers can abuse and to have violent attitude towards their workers. I mean, it's only the violence, but also other means of brutality. The cutting off of water, cutting off electricity, closing the farm gates, even when somebody wants to go to hospital and then they're not allowed to get in or out of the farm. And so I think it's very important that we need to engage the farming organizations, say, how can we better the relationship between farm workers and farmers?
Just please do stay with us on the phone line. It's almost like we're going back into the days of slavery where you're not even allowed to go to the hospital when you've got an injury, you know, being locked in at work. You've got to get permission before you can go to the restroom, get permission for your tea break. Now, gentlemen, just in rounding off the conversation, what do you think is the way forward?
Well, unfortunately, the ANC chose to protect the property rights of these farmers, and the Human Rights Commission and the Constitution works within that framework. And what we're seeing today is the result of that decision. So I don't think talking to these organizations is going to get us anywhere. We need to work in an entirely different framework that starts with the fact that, look, these power relationships that we see in this video is actually a result, the power derives from that stolen property. And as long as they have that stolen property, they will be able to do these things.
And Bisa, just from you, do you think that if perhaps the land is given back to their rightful owners, that these kinds of injustices will stop?
You know what, I don't think so. I'm thinking that we need to come up with a new plan of action. We need to come up with a new approach of relations, of developing some new culture in the industry where people should understand they can't do without their workers. And I'm so sorry because I feel so bad that this guy who's doing this, he's also a worker. He's not a farm owner, he's a worker. So what gives him right to do that to other employees? Because of a color. You know, and somewhere along the line, we need to come up with a different plan of action for us to be understood that we are all human beings around the country.
Well, Ronnie McKenzie, let me just get your closing comments.
Thank you. My closing comments in this is that black people stand up. It's time we start standing up. This pussyfooting around things doesn't work. We've seen in the last 23 years or so, it's not working. White people still take us for granted. They see a monkey when they see you, and make no mistake as a black person to start thinking that any white person can start loving you. They'll love you for whatever is convenient for them. Other than that, you're just a nobody in their eyes. Treat them the same as they treat you. Have power. Take the power away from them and take the power to yourself. Stop thinking about all the type of things. The ANC government has really indeed disappointed us as farmers, as black people in the Republic of South Africa. It's time that we start doing things. They've liberated us. It's time now that we start taking it further. Let's take the power into our own hands and stop thinking that the ANC will come, government will come. It's time. We can see nothing has been done. Many laws have been passed, but there's still nothing that comes to effect with it. Let us start standing together, in particular as black people, and uniting against these people. I will say these people because it shows that they've never come forward. We are forever the ones that are reaching out for peace treaty, peace this. It's enough. We cannot go on this way anymore. It's time that we start doing things for ourselves and stop relying on white people to doing things for us. This is what I can say to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. And Mr. Nissen, just your closing comments.
Yes, let me just make it very clear. The South African Human Rights Commission is an independent institution, and we don't want to be linked to any political party. What we are doing on a daily basis is defend farm workers against the brutality of farmers. We have seen this on a daily basis. People call us, we go out, our workers out there defending farm workers against farm brutalities. And it's sad in South Africa today, after 25 years of democracy, that we still see the brutality of the relationship between farm workers and farmers. However, what we must also say, there are some farmers that are really doing good, but we also have asked, the one thing that we don't touch this evening is the farm evictions and the effect of farm evictions on different communities. And we've asked the President to call a moratorium on farm evictions. And I think that's one of the issues, because a number of farm workers end up destitute without anything after evictions. The fact of the matter is brutality is brutality, and whoever farm worker, whoever they are, that deals with, that does that, needs to be processed and be convicted and taken through the court, through the justice process, and be convicted if found guilty and pay the price. We cannot allow farm brutality anymore.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our esteemed panelists. That is where we leave it for tonight, but you remember that you can communicate with us via social media. Follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @AfroWorldView. It is time now for a short break. We'll be back with more stories, so do stay with us.